Hi, everyone. I have my new friend, LaChelle Adkins, with me. And LaChelle is a shining beacon in the Go Giver community. LaChelle, why don't you tell our listeners, our viewers, and our readers a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, Jeff. It has been a pleasure meeting you and talking with you just the few times that we have had, and your support. I mean, you just shine just from the very beginning. So I'm so excited to be here today. But I am also known as America's Supermom. My husband and I have 15 children and,
Let everyone process that number for a moment.
I know I always say it, but it's like sometimes it's a distraction. I
Yeah.
tell people 15 kids, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what do you guys drive?" And, are they adopted, blended? I had 13, and then 2 of them are my stepchildren. We
Wow.
still have 11 that live at home. We had 10, but my daughter recently had an apartment fire. The whole apartment complex
Wow.
completely got destroyed while she was out of the country. So she came back and so she's looking for a place, but it's just never a dull moment. That's what I would say.
You know,
That just summed that up right there. Yeah.
I'm just going to share and then we'll get back into it. But my wife's first question, I told her I was meeting you and I was excited
Uh-huh.
to meet you today. And she said, "What do they drive?" That was her
Right.
question. And my question was, I wonder what their daily routines are. So guess
Yes.
where we focus?
I know, because we're just thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm a parent." I couldn't imagine, right?
Yep.
So we did used to have a van, like 15 passenger, but now our kids are older, so they have their own vehicles. So we don't have the large vehicle anymore. And then we just have 5 that are really still, under 18. So that's 2 in high school, 2 in middle, and 1 in elementary school. The rest are, in college or done with college, living on their own, different things like that. But so what I do every day is I am a media strategist. I help people really hone in on what their message is and find ways to monetize it. I went through my own journey of depression for 13 years and I was hospitalized 3 times. And so for me, messaging is important. I got my degree in marketing from Indiana University. And what I have found with my degree is that the topic of depression is something that would not be talked about. And even in a lot of different spaces, it's very taboo. So it really pushed me to create my own platform. So I started as a podcast host. I'm a speaker and author, did some coaching, and now I have my own TV channel. And I'm interested in acquiring producers who want to have content that empowers us and talks about the real hard conversations that a lot of times we suffer in silence, wanting something to be different, but not knowing how to change it. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love and that's a lot of nutshells. I mean, that's big things. And I get the sense that you're a bit of a patriotic American. Would that be a fair
Yes.
assessment?
Yes. I love it because, for me, I was an only child and I was raised as a high achiever. So, my academic career, I believe, was very good, stellar, but it um, put me in this mindset of kind of scarcity because I felt like, oh, I can have anything I want if I work hard enough for it. But I didn't really know how to collaborate. I felt like if I wanted something, I had to work for it. So I would burn myself out just doing all these different things. And when my husband and I got married and had our family, and as it continued to grow, I realized that I felt that I couldn't do the American dream the way that it was. I thought I had to put my career on the shelf and be a mom. So I was a stay-home mom and homeschooled my kids at some points. But for me, my brand also symbolizes me redefining what the American dream is to me. So you can be a mom and you can be a successful business person at the same time. So,
Well,
yeah.
and honestly, that's I think the energy that drew me to you is that many people think or I can be
Right.
successful or a parent. And I just when I heard what you do in a daily in your life, in your business, and oh, by the way, she has 15 children. Um, wow. It just impressed me that this is somebody I need to interview for this conversation because first of all, I'm going to assume that you figured out how to build authentic relationships, with your family. But I also see you out in the general community, and I think we have a mutual love and respect for Bob Burke.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. I'm just going to share a family story. My 11-year-old, I was talking about my uncle Bob, and
Mhm.
Bob and I talk about him in the car with my kids a lot. We talk about the Go Giver, and
Wow.
my 11-year-old assumed that my uncle Bob, who is my biological uncle, was Bob Berg. And boy, was he disappointed that Bob Berg is not my actual uncle. I said he's more
I
like a
love
brother
that.
than an uncle, but
I love that. I love that.
it's just weird. But to me, I had this aha moment, and I'm all about filters and simplifying my life, and
Mhm.
weeding the garden, so to speak.
Mhm.
um, I realize that two of my best filters are if people don't love the Go Giver, I don't have anything
Mhm.
I need to share with them. It just doesn't work. But
Mhm.
the other aha was if they don't love their kids, that tells me something about them as a human being.
Mhm.
And
You've said a mouthful with that. I think that is so true. And one of the things that I think is I had to learn how to watch people's feet rather than their mouths. Because people would tell me stuff and I'm like, "Yeah, it sounds good." And sometimes if you are a high achiever, you just kinda resonate with what they say and then you get to work. And
yeah,
then you don't realize that, "Oh my gosh, I'm over here doing this and they've left and, they're nowhere in the building and
yeah.
I'm going on with this idea." Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, where did you go? That's you and I love that. Watch their feet, not their mouth, because I think
Mhm.
that's I've spent a lot of time believing people,
Yeah.
and my aha moment is, wait a minute, I'm the first one to set up at the party, and I'm the last one to leave after cleanup.
Mhm.
Um, where did all the people go who said they wanted to have a party that we all participated in?
Yes, so true. Yeah, and the thing that I've learned is we really teach people how to treat us. Because we can say a lot of things, but it's actually our behavior.
Yeah,
So even if we say, "Hey, you know, we're going to have everybody do this," but if we're not enforcing it, if there's no consequences, it's just like children, right?
yeah,
They're going to keep on doing what they're doing. So
yep,
I learned, it took me doing this to myself, in my own journey to realize that if I don't look out for myself, it's like that oxygen mask. Okay.
yep.
Nobody is going to be the wiser. So I learned quickly after three hard-headed situations.
I love it.
But I'm glad I learned. Okay.
Yep. And by the way, if we don't put our oxygen masks on, when we pass out, how many people can we help then?
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
somebody once told me, "Would you be mad at your car that you had to pull over and put gas in the tank?" And I was like, "Wow, that was remarkably simple, but whoops, went right over my head." So
It's so true. So true.
you and I are going to talk about some amazing things. I
Mhm.
have a hard-hitting question right out of the gate, and I love that you're going to show up and let me ask the hard questions.
Mhm.
How did you learn that inspiration was most important in impacting the lives of others?
That is a great question, and that's something that a lot of people don't ask because to me, inspiration is different than motivation. So, in order for us to be inspirational, we have to be transparent and vulnerable. The best example I could say is that when I first got into coaching and, got on these different platforms with podcasts and things, a gentleman has shared that, people can be enamored by your story and they will put you on a pedestal, but you don't have to stay there. Because when you're on a pedestal, you're not relating to the people. You're elevated in some fashion and they can't relate to you. And so when you are relatable, for me in my journey, I love for people to relate to my story because they say, oh my gosh, she has 15 kids, she's doing XYZ. If she can do it, then I have to do it also because there's no excuse for me not to be doing these things if I see that she's doing them with all that she's managing. And that's the point that I want a lot of people to realize is that we each have our own gifts. And a lot of times we can get weighed down with society, with life, and all the things that are happening. But it really is work to keep moving. I don't know. We sometimes get this fairy tale mindset that, okay, I want a perfect life and it's just going to happen. I'm not going to have any problems, but I come from a spiritual background where God tells me that I'm going to have tribulation. So I have to stay in it and keep working. And so when you're able to tell people the real truth, they can relate to you. And if
Yeah.
they can relate to you, then that helps them eliminate the excuses in their own life and they just get started.
Yeah.
So,
And to your pedestal comment, I find it interesting because when whoever invented Superman, I'm sorry, I can't remember the person. I
mhm,
love the story, but he was this completely invincible alien on Earth.
right.
And the test audiences were lukewarm at best. And when they gave
Mhm,
him one flaw, which is kryptonite, all of a sudden
mhm,
people loved him because he was relatable. And I
mhm,
think that's, I personally do not ever want to be on a pedestal. I want to be down in and amongst my community because if
mhm,
I'm on a pedestal, I'm not learning. I'm not
exactly.
having the impact. Now, there's something I want to bring out to the universe, and I have a firm belief. I don't know how we'll make this happen, but I think we manifest our destiny. In
Amen.
your bio, you said something that made me smile, and the way you worded it, I'd like to share it with my audience here, and I want to talk to you about it if
Okay.
you're okay.
Yeah.
So, the bio says LaChelle is working diligently for the opportunity to collaborate with Oprah Winfrey and Jimmy Fallon. I got chills. Now, LaChelle is inspired by them both and feel that they have audiences that could benefit from her strategies to design their life free from depression. So
Mhm.
I don't personally know anyone who knows Oprah or Jimmy Fallon, but I assume somebody does. Let's talk about why that's important to you and how you narrowed it down to those two.
Yeah, I think they are 2 people that have been inspirational in overcoming this major part of my journey of depression. Oprah, I love her vulnerability, how she's been able to have people on platforms to really do work in healing. I think one my signature coaching program talks about how healing is an ongoing thing. It's an evolution. We're always going to be doing it because we're always going to be evolving and changing. And she has just been able to do that in such a way where, you sometimes don't even realize that you're going through. It's like somebody's operating on you and you're just numb and you're like, all is good in the world, and then you leave transformed. That's kind of how I liken her. Jimmy Fallon is just hilarious. I mean, he is not afraid to put himself out there in order to help others feel better about life, about, hard things. And so they're just 2 people that really I feel that I would just love to collaborate. And I purposely say collaboration because I feel like I would love to do some kind of project with them. because I believe that, they truly understand how they're serving in the world. And to be a part of that and collaborate and, be able to have an impact in the world, I just think that just lights me up. And I'm just so, how do I want to say it? It's so like a part of me believing that it's happening that it's kind of like I'm not even worried about it. It's like, we're approaching Thanksgiving. So it's like, oh, that's the turkey that's in the oven. I'm getting the sides together. That turkey's going to be ready one day. So yeah,
You
that's
can't rush the turkey, right?
exactly. So I feel like, it's going to happen. I don't know when. Yeah, that's just how I feel about it.
I love it, and I love the energy you're putting in. I'm just gonna share. I wish if you see a lot of the funny people that everybody loves as comedians,
Hmm.
I wish the world had recognized the pain in Robin Williams. And
Yeah.
it's weird, but now that I know how he went out, I watch some of his movies and I'm like, you can see the depression in his eyes. You can see that pain. So I'm a big fan of anybody who's helping ease the pain. And I think the biggest challenge I see with depression, and I want to hear your thoughts,
Hmm.
is people don't know, like it's not okay to talk about, or it's perceived to be
Right.
not okay. So depression makes people feel alone, and once they feel alone, the depression gets worse. Is that an
So
over?
true. Well, and I think also, I was functionally depressed. I don't even know if that's a real thing. That's the way I label it because I didn't even know I was depressed, right? I'm thinking, oh, depression is somebody who's in the bed. They don't want to get up. They don't have any kind of motivation to do anything. So that was not me. I was, taking my kids to school, as sometimes homeschooling, going to extracurricular activities. So I was always busy, but I was hiding behind masks. So I had got to this point where it was, like I said, this is 13 years. So I had learned how to navigate and I didn't have that awareness. So my husband is retired military. He also worked in retail and he's a pastor. So there was a lot of times that, he would go to work, the kids are asleep, he would get home, the kids were asleep. And so it was like, hey, if he's not here, I'm the adult. I just got to make the decision. And so I felt like, I really don't have time to get sick. I don't have time to be sick, and a number of the things. And so um, I think a lot even educating people about what depression looks like. It's just like success. Success looks different to different people. So it's the same thing with depression. But I think, you know, really a lot of us are just not in tune with ourselves. We're not in tune with our emotions, what our aspirations are. I know in my case, I was so busy trying to be this perfect mom with 15 kids and no example because as a high achiever, um, I learned so much that I was following a blueprint all my life. I was getting high marks in school. I was in gifted classes, honor roll, but the marks were okay. This is what you do to get an A plus. This is what you do to get a B. So it was always following somebody else's system. This is how you get a job. This is what you wear for an interview. And so when I had the opportunity to create my own roadmap, I didn't know what to do on top of having a lot of responsibility. So yeah, I was a nut, a recipe for a disaster. That's what I was.
Well, and I love that because I think, nobody would want to accept the phrase, I chose to be depressed. But when
Mhm.
you look at the little sacrifices, the little pieces of your soul that you gave up to quote
Yeah.
succeed, um, I have a friend and I'm going to shout out to Justin Breen here.
Mhm.
He looked at me once and he said, Jeff, you're trying to win the wrong game. And it
Mm.
was just a cold splash of water in the face because I was like, I have no skin in this game. I don't want to play the rat race game and, success for the sake of success. To me personally, if success doesn't involve impact and helping others,
Mhm.
it's a hollow win, and I'm never going to feel enough.
Mhm. So
And I
true.
realized it's all those little decisions that lead to, you give in, give in, give in, and you're like, okay, this is all life can be.
Yeah.
Um, Now, let's talk about your husband for a minute. I know this is
Mhm.
total tangents, but I have absolute utter respect for the military, and
Mhm.
people think that means I'm pro war. Actually, I'm a pacifist, and I would like nothing more than to have all of our soldiers doing something else. Um,
Mhm.
but having said that, the fact that they're fighting for us, I feel we owe them at least the support and the
Yeah,
gratitude. So make sure you thank him for his service,
I
and
will.
anything I can do to support him as a soldier. I'm not okay with the statistics on people, veterans that transition and the suicide rate. So I think
Yeah.
you and I, we were meant to collaborate because I'm really passionate about helping veterans with PTSD and depression
Mhm.
because they think they're alone.
Yes. And I,
Eh,
that is so true. And it is a hard pill to swallow because you do sacrifice a lot with the whole idea of being in the service and serving. And it's some challenges with veterans benefits and just a number of things that it's like this should not be. But again, we have humans that are, they have their flaws like everybody else, and we think that a system is supposed to work a certain way, but a system is not a person.
Yeah.
And so when we hide behind systems, a lot of people suffer. We got to
Mhm.
get back to the human side of things. So that's one of the things I'd say about that.
Love it. Now let's pivot slightly.
Mhm.
One of the I look at you from a regular person's mindset, and I go, "Wow, she's doing a lot." Um,
Mhm.
but when I reach out with my heart and I see who you are, everything I see just really you're cheerleader for humanity and community. That's
Mhm.
the message I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me how you are building your community and adding value to the world.
Yeah, collaboration. I can't say it loud enough. And, I used to think that I knew what collaboration was. For me, it's like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea. I'm going to get people to collaborate with me, but it's my idea done my way for me getting the credit. That's how collaboration used to be. And I would fall flat on my face. But when I learned that collaboration is growing with the people that you get connected to. Um, nobody really has to get credit. I mean, and I love it even better when nobody knows whose idea it is, right? It just kind of
Those are my
morphs into
favorite
something.
rooms.
Yeah, it changes into something else. It's like, I feel like, whenever I go into the grocery store, sometimes people come and say, "Oh, do you know where the toilet paper is?" And I used to be like, "Oh, I don't work here." Now I just go help people,
Yeah.
if I know where it is, because I just think that's important, right? But when we're collaborating, we're actually co-creating. So I had the pleasure of doing an audio room with Dr. Ivan Meisner. I got acquainted with him over right before the pandemic. And we've been on several interviews, but I was able to do his first audio room. And he was talking about his book, Who's in Your Room? The whole idea about the co creating, you know? And so this is where it really takes a turn to really grow, to have an impact, and have the better energy because everybody is bringing something to it. So again, back to Thanksgiving, it's having this beautiful spread of everybody contributing different dishes, and as they continue to contribute more, it just continues to grow and you're able to serve more people.
I love that, and I think, it's funny, I'm just gonna share that, I've figured it out the last year.
Mm.
Collaboration to me used to be a competition, who had the
Yeah,
best ideas, who had the most ideas, and in the last year, I've realized when I stopped keeping score,
yeah,
the energy, the cosmic energy to keep score was keeping us here. But when
right.
you stop keeping score, there's that glass ceiling that explodes, and all of a sudden you look back and go, I have no idea how we got here, but wow.
Exactly. I mean, it's just to me, there's scarcity and abundance. They do coexist. But it's like, what side of the street are you on? Because
Yeah.
you can't be in both places at the same time. So if you're on Scarcity Street, I'm telling you the view is so much different. It's crazy. You get
Yep.
on Abundance and it's like, I am not going back to Scarcity. Okay.
Uh,
That is not for me. So yeah, it's a totally different mindset. Yeah.
I love it. Now let's talk about building authentic relationships, because that is the
Mhm.
theme of what's going to be. And by the way, it's funny because people talk about my book, and I'm like, if it's my book, it's not going to be good. It's just going to
Yeah.
be okay.
Hmm.
Again, it's that turkey dinner. People like turkey, but Thanksgiving is not about the turkey. It's
Right.
about the spread, the meal. So
Yeah.
how would you define building authentic relationships in your words? Don't, it's my definition that I have, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah. I think you first have to be a good listener. Because what I've learned is that, when I'm open to listen, I learned that relationships and people that are in alignment with me, they don't look like me. They don't, they're not my same age. They're not my same race. They're not my same gender. They're not my same culture. And being in a place to where I could really feel what somebody else is saying, that has been a game changer because and even now, like, I don't read people's bios. I do a lot of interviews and I just don't have questions up front. It's all ad lib and spontaneous because I like to connect with where people are. Coming from a business background, there's so much to making sure that you have a good bio or making sure that, you're looking a certain part. And I have to unlearn so many things that were not positive about that life, but that was all I knew, that I have to do things totally different. So that's one of the things is that I don't read people's bios until afterwards. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I had known I could have asked them something. I did an interview with a gentleman who was running for governor from my home state. And he is in the medical field, but we did this interview at this event, and I came from Georgia to go interview him, and it was a wonderful interview. I mean, there's nothing I would have changed about it except he had been on Oprah's show. Not once, but maybe a couple times, and I didn't know that before. So, sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I just believe that, things happen for a reason. It would have come up, but it was all about him. That probably might have changed something, if I had even approached that. But I think, when you're in a space to really listen, you hear what people are not saying. And that gives you more insight than anything that somebody could say to you.
I love that. And I think that's fantastic. I think so many people are, I'm trying to define active listening to people, and I have these conversations with my kids and they're getting it. But when I try to explain it to adults, they're like, wait, but I want to say something, and so you want me to just listen, and I'm like, clearly you're not listening.
Okay.
It's fascinating that, I had this aha moment that, one of the wonderful things about the global pandemic
Mhm.
was that I could connect with anywhere, anytime.
Mhm.
But one of the things I realized was that, I bring my biases, my lenses, and my views. And when
Mhm.
I use a word, it might mean something totally different to me than it means to someone else.
Mhm.
And I've been really working on the active listening because communication only happens when we both understand the message.
Yes. That's so
And
good.
I'll let you in on a little secret. Bob Berg has an amazing question, and I can't remember it, and I always struggle to remember it because I want to repeat it exactly the way Bob says it.
Mhm.
And I think the question is somewhere along the lines of how might I recognize a great introduction for you? And
Mhm.
I agonized over the syntax of the question, and then one day I realized it didn't matter. It was the intention and the energy with which I asked it. Because
Right.
I can ask the exact same question, on Scarcity Street, and somebody's going to hear it and go, "What do you want from me?" Or
Exactly.
when I cross into abundance, I say it, and people go, "I see you, I hear you," and it is beautiful the synergy that happens there.
So true. Yeah. Tone and just again, there's so many people that say the right things, but their energy is not in alignment.
Mhm.
And, when we're able to kind of have ourself together, it's like when you are actively listening, you're in neutral.
Yeah.
So you could see the energy that's right there with you, you know. Um, and I say that a lot of people sometimes when they're still healing, they may be bleeding and they find somebody else that's bleeding. Well, nobody knows whose blood is what because they're both bleeding on each other, right?
Yeah.
But when we learn to contain ourselves, we can hold space for somebody. And a lot of that comes from judgment. You know, I have totally been able to let go of judgment because I had to forgive myself, on my journey. I was blaming my kids, my husband's circumstances about, well, I was depressed 3 times and it was because of them or him or whatever. And when I learned to take accountability and forgive myself, that's when all the judgment just washed away. And so now I can recognize it's kind of like a doctor. If you are taking some if you're assessing where somebody's is, you're just simply making a diagnosis based on the symptoms. So if you get to the point to where you have yourself together, you can make a diagnosis. People will start showing up. They may say something and it's like, "Oh, okay, they're angry." Okay. I didn't do anything to make them angry. So let me, see if I can calm them down. But if not, then I'm going to leave and let them calm down and then I'll come back later. So, you don't have to internalize everybody else's emotions that they're trying to work through.
And I love this piece because I've had many, many conversations with many wonderful networkers. And one of the themes I hear the most is when you're self aware,
Mhm.
you become a better communicator, not because. And by the way, I spent a lot of time learning the mechanics of communication and it never quite landed. But once I started doing the inner work and stopped worrying about, once you forgive yourself and once you heal yourself, everybody around you suddenly magically appears less damaged.
Yeah.
And it's like looking at the world through a broken eyeglass lens, it's like, wow, everybody's got cracks and you fix that lens and oh wow, everything's clearer and I can see it.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, really, so much I've learned through, me being a coach is that it's not about me, right? It's just not about me. My journey is to help me connect with other people, but um there's so much, we talk about children, but we were children, and we just grow up, we get older and are still children. That's
Yeah.
really the reality, right?
Yeah.
Because we have the same tendencies, you
Yeah.
know. We wanna be seen and heard. I mean, that's how we feel that we matter and have value. So it's the same thing, you know? So, yeah, there's just a number of things that we can learn, from our children. I tell people all the time, they're my best teachers because they teach me about myself all the time, right?
Oh, thank God, LaChelle. I tell people that and they look at me like I'm simple. And it's like, I can learn more from an 11-year-old figuring out the world than I
Mhm.
can learn from me as an adult who thinks I've figured it out.
Right.
And I love the innocence of a child. You know, I'm going to tell you, I've followed Bob Berg for a long time. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I started talking to my kids about networking that I got it. And
Mm.
my 11-year-old, I'm gonna give you this because it gave me chills. New school, first day of school, he was brand new kid there, he didn't know anybody, and he saw this other kid who looked a little lost and afraid on the playground. He
Mhm.
walked up and said, "Hi, I'm new. Would you like to be my friend?" And the other kid smiled, lit up like a Christmas tree.
Mm.
They ran off and played together, and he looked at me and he said, I was talking to him and I said, "That was really nice that you did." And he said, I did what felt right." And I was
That's
like, I don't need, and by the way, when COVID hit, I read every book on the subject of networking. I was looking for the secret. And then I was like, oh my God, it's relationships, it's communication,
so true.
it's being sincere and being authentic.
Mhm. Well, and another thing that was really profound about what he said is that it felt right. So many people, I just know when I was in that time of depression, I was numb. I
Mm,
was not feeling things because I felt like I didn't have time for certain feelings. It's like I don't have time for that right now. I have to, be I have to cook dinner. I got to help the kids with the homework. It was like I was a robot on autopilot.
yeah.
And feelings matter. Feelings, really they help you. Again, they help you to know who you are so that you're not internalizing what other people got going on, you know? So that was huge to be 11 and have that insight. That's amazing.
And honestly, that was my aha moment. Somebody was asking, I don't know, somebody asked me a question about what are you teaching your kids? And I
Mhm.
went, that's a really arrogant question from my perspective to ask,
Mhm.
what can I teach my kids? And I said, what feels right to me is what can I learn from them?
Mhm.
And the magic is I'm not, giving up my brain and saying, okay, I'm going to learn from my kids. But the
Mhm.
reality is when we learn together,
Mhm.
everybody wins. So,
Yeah, that's huge. That's awesome.
well, I could talk to you all day, LaChelle, but I promise you I won't. So, I have a couple of quick questions, and then
Okay.
take as much time as you need. But first
Okay.
question is, how does somebody work with you, and more importantly, how do they know that you're the right person to work with?
Well, right now I am actively working to build my channel. So if someone has a podcast or some other video interviews that they've conducted on YouTube or Facebook or anything, and they want more exposure, I would love to work with them. I'm interested in positive programming about self development, but I want a diverse community, something that symbolizes the world, the whole globe. And so I'm interested in helping them find ways that they can monetize. A lot of times um we don't pursue sometimes our passions because we're like, well, this isn't making money. It's not profitable. It's seen as a hobby or whatever. So that's how it all begins. It's really that's the authentic piece is that we really are serving, but, teaching them how to monetize that. So that's someone that I'm looking to connect with right now because 2024 is going to be awesome. Uh, I'm looking forward to some great collaborators. So I have spots for up to 12 people. So I am actively looking for them. And then I really just have a community. That I'm working towards in 2024, to where, we help each other support each other when it comes to speaking opportunities, book collaborations. My goal is to really back away from social media. I remember learning about Carl Cal Newport and how, he doesn't have social media. You just send him an email. He checks it every once in a while. He wrote the book Deep Work, but I would hear him on podcasts and I'm thinking, how the heck is he making it not being on social media? But I believe it's so important um to show up the way that you are at your best.
Yeah.
And social media is great for some, but I just feel like, when you are really into the energy of impact in the world, you just can't be all places
Yeah.
because you're not going to be reciprocated, and
Yeah.
it's like you're putting yourself out there to be a martyr, and I'm kind of done with that.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
yeah, so I'm building my own community for that so that we can focus on being our best version of ourselves. So, yeah, that's what I've got going on.
All right. Well, I'm going to share something tangent, but I woke up this morning and my guide told me in my brain that LinkedIn is not the place for me. And it's funny because I teach people how to use LinkedIn. I've written books on LinkedIn. And
Mhm,
the reality is, LinkedIn is just a networking tool. But what it's
mhm,
missing is the community.
mhm,
And, I see really amazing people posting amazing content, and then they spend all their day defending against, trolls that want,
mhm,
free advice, or they, just want to post their thing to get their attention.
mhm,
And it's like, I'm a community leader. I'm going to guess that Martin Luther King wouldn't be on Facebook. No offense, Zuckerberg, but I don't
mhm,
feel that Martin Luther King would have wasted his energy dealing with the trolls on Facebook.
mhm.
And he wouldn't have had the impact he had he. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about moments in history, and you know, when he did "As I Have a Dream," I can't remember how many people showed up. We didn't have Eventbrite, we didn't have,
Right.
Twitter. It was just people who cared about the cause showed up.
Yeah.
And, I've been to his museum, and, all I can say is you need time to sit and process. And, you know, I can weep for humanity, or I can celebrate what we've come from. I like to celebrate, but it's
Mhm.
also, I don't feel that social media, it serves the masters who make the money from it,
Right.
not the people who are in there and trying to spread their word. So,
So
um,
true.
long way of saying, whatever you need, you've got two very broad shoulders here. I am here to support you.
Oh, I
Now,
appreciate that.
people watching this, if they don't love you by now, there's something clearly wrong with them. And you and I don't need to spend energy. No offense. Um, how can those who watching this going, "Oh my god, this woman's amazing," like me, how can we come into your orbit and hang out in your universe? Because community seems too small for what you're doing. So I think
Oh.
you're a universe builder.
Oh, you are just so sweet. I received that. I'm have to get off here and process that for a minute. And I love that because I'm learning with your brand, it's not what you say about yourself, it's what others say about you. That's the thing that's just so heartfelt and touching about what you're saying. Um, but they can email me, because like I said, I'm backing away. I'm on LinkedIn. Uh have a very active presence on there. However, in 2024, I'm just not going to be in those places. And I'm a person that likes to connect with people directly. Just like when you and I connected, I sent you a message and, we connected directly. I feel like that's what people are missing. It's like they talk about conversions, they think that they can just put something out there and it's just going to walk, talk, and do everything for them. And I like interacting. Now that could be probably because I was an only child. So, for years I was by myself and it's like I got a friend. Everybody's a friend, right? So, That's what I value. So my email is info@LaChelleAdkins.com.
I love it. And I'll put that in the book and people can reach out.
Mhm,
Um, now, Lachelle, you are an amazing human, and I love being in your universe and sharing the universe with you.
mhm.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that we should have talked about before we wrap up?
You did some good questions. I love the whole thing about inspiration. I think that really was a good question. Um, how people can get started. I think, some people feel like, they want to take massive action. They want to change everything about them, but simply reframing is something that a lot of times we don't talk about. And when you're doing a reframe, it is simply taking a small step in a different direction and building momentum as you go. So if you want to eat healthy, right? You might want to start drinking some water. you know? So it's like, hey, for every cup of coffee, drink a cup of water, right? I think we just kind of don't think about the practical ways that we can get started. And it's like you can't have a craving for something that you are not you haven't experienced, you haven't tasted before. So you have to kind of build that up. So massive action actually is taking small steps that you can consistently do every day. So it's those little things that you could do every day and then continue to build on it. So that would be something I would add.
I love it. And what my head's thinking is, and by the way, I'm amazed how many wellness experts, it's all about drink more water.
Mhm.
Um, they talk about small steps, but in your case, I'm hearing small sips,
Yeah.
because it's the small sips that give you
Mhm.
the small steps. So
So true.
well, Lachelle, I could talk to you all day. I adore you. You're amazing. Anything I can do to support you, you and I are going to have more conversations. But first of all, I want to thank you so much. You graciously gave me your time and energy and presence. So thank you for being on the show with me today. And I look forward to sharing you with my community.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me and have a wonderful holiday.